family. My name is Ray Ray. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr.'s History Club. Give yourself a big hand for giving us support. We meet here twice a month in honor of William Mackey Jr., Amos Wilson, Bill Noble, Louis Ray Rivera, Dr. Ben, El-Haj Malik Shabazz, Edwin Scobie, Professor George Simmons, Malcolm X, Hubert Harrison, and all the people that gave up fame and fortune, big cars, good lives, tenures at colleges. They could have lived a good life, but they chose to tell the truth because they was dedicated to their people and given true history. They went beyond the call of duty. Dr. Chancellor Williams. So we have this class in honor of these people, so they don't be forgotten, so their names will ring and their work is to be studied, because they burned the midnight oil to bring truth to power. And that's one thing that the European hates is truth. You cannot stand it. And we never want these people to be forgotten, because if you leave it up to the powers that be, they switch everything. So we meet in honor, because people burn the midnight oil to bring history. Now, we're going to bring the camera over here. This is what I call the Amos Collection. Blueprint for Black Power. We have the unspeakable, revealing the unspeakable Bible verses by Earl Ponder, the truth about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam and the Holy Trinity. He passed away, and Sababa still sells his books so he could keep his work going. African World Info Systems. Brother S.K. Damiana Akumi, Distorted Truths, the Bastardization of African Cosmetology. Amos's last work, put together by Sababa, The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat Toward a Reclamation of the African Mind. Excellent book. Black on Black Violence, The Psychodynamic of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. Also, we have The Falsification of African Consciousness, Eurocentric History, Psychiatry, and the Politics of White Supremacy. Amos Classic. Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children. We also have Jazz in Jail in honor of Louis Ray Rivera, who came here and used to speak for hours. The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child by Amos. African-Centered Consciousness versus the New World Order. Issues of Manhood in Black and White. We have the Carter G. Woodson series, General Harriet Tubman. Cultural Genocide in Black and African Studies by Dr. Ben. We have Dirt, Social History that's seen through the use and abuse of dirt by Terence McLaughlin. You want to really see how Europeans live, you get that book. And Dr. Ben's classic, Black Man of the Nile and His Family. No computers when he did this book. We talk about the midnight oil. Now also, I have two books here that Dr. Lewis will get into, and he did it with his last lecture. Europe, The Strange Death of Europe, Immigration, Identity, and Islam. And this is another book that Dr. Lewis recommended, Capitalism on a Ventilator, the impact of COVID-19 in China and the US. We'll be having these books next week. So we have these books. And if anybody wants them, you can see me or go into African World Info Systems. Because we don't want the work of Amos and all these people to be forgotten. Now this is some global information, if you're not doing anything, on Tuesdays, on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. www.mnn at 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock. Community Cop, Brother Mike Graves, Noel Leader, Julian Hopper, and the team. They come on 5, and they go to 6. And if you want to see any of their lectures, you go on YouTube and type in Community Cop, or you can go on my Facebook page and you can see the lectures. Also, tomorrow, if you're not doing anything, at 8 o'clock, we got Thorough Black Talk with Tisha, Tad, and Ashe on YouTube. You just go into YouTube and you put in Thorough Black Talk, and the program starts at 8 o'clock. That's very informative. Saturdays at 10:30, we have Sister Empress. 10:30 p.m. Empress Chi, New Day Resurrection, Blog Talk Radio. Go in at 10:30, type in Empress Chi, and then go down to New Day, and you'll come in at 10:30, and sometimes they go all the way to 2 o'clock in the morning. Also, we have another study group. Brother Truss is on Saturdays at 1 o'clock. And we have the information for that. But it's also another very important program that comes on out of Baltimore, a brother named Darren Muhammad, State of the City. If you type in State of the City at 1 o'clock Saturdays, that'll come on. W1590 AM out of Baltimore. Those are just some reference points to get information to the global black community. So, this lecture is going to be part 2. COVID-19 and the New World Order. In the Zoom chat, I have my Cash App number. If you feel like donating to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr.'s History Club, it's in the chat if you want to contribute to help us out, pay the rent, and do what we got to do. So last week, 2 weeks ago, Dr. Lewis was excellent. He's going to do part 2, and then we're going to have a question and answer, and he will tell you any questions you want to answer, you can answer, and he will answer it. Without further ado, we're going to start this lecture. I want you to give Dr. Arthur Lewis a great big hand.
Good evening, global community, African community. My name is Dr. Lewis. I'm an African American. I use that for those to say who is he or she. To just donate connotes that I recognize that my ancestors come from Africa. I identify with Africa, African people globally, and the American part is just connoting that I happen to be a citizen of the United States of America. I want to give appreciation to the study group here. It's because they allow me to give me the privilege to present information.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On certain fields that I have interest in. And so what I do is I pick a topic and then I begin to do research. And what I try to do is put the material together. So when you see the 3 handouts, this is a collective effort of what I've done. I get messages from people in this audience and others directing me to all types of websites. And these websites and information base I use to put into the lecture series. So this is really a compilation of the African people within the study group that's sending me information. So I have to say that the quality of what we do is dependent upon not only myself, but every one of you who has contributed. So it's a collective effort here. The material that I present is material that comes in the public domain. I don't have any access to any secret information or something that I shouldn't have. This is what's in the public domain. And so I use it. And what I do is collect information, I edit it, I cut and paste, I do whatever I have to do to try to make the point to you. And so we're going to continue the New World Order and we're going to end with COVID. We structure, myself and others, the lecture with written material rather than to entertain you with a slide presentation when you use your eye. You have to have the material, you have to read it, you have to go over it, you got to have this information to teach or show other individuals. That's why it's done in this manner. In this particular case, you have 3 handouts. There's the first handout that we're going to deal with. It's 2 pages. The first page is Bretton Woods Conference. We're going to explain what the Bretton Woods Conference was and how it connects it to the New World Order. People say, why is he talking about the New World Order? Because that has been introduced to the public concurrent with this COVID virus. There's a whole New World Order that we have to restructure the way countries do things. So we said to ourselves, I discussed it with others, let's try to give our people, African-based people, and others who want to listen, what this New World Order is from the people who are telling you about it, not what I say. The second handout that we're going to deal with contains 3 pages. The first page is dealing with a short article on coronavirus that I was able to get out of the free newspaper that's given in the subway in New York City. The second page of this second handout is just a review of what we did last 2 weeks to show you the immune system. The purpose of why I put the immune system together is to show there is a certain biological way the body has in recognizing foreign material coming in. There's a whole set of procedures and things that have to do with making antibodies. And then the third sheet is a sheet that I give out. It deals with how do you boost your immune system? And we will present it, and based upon the time, we'll go into more depth into each of these areas. The third handout that you have is 4 pages. And what these 4 pages are, I cut and pasted out of this article. So I go online and I do a research, and it says here, the third handout, which we'll do, but I just want you to let you know how I put it together. It says a fact sheet for health providers administering the vaccine emergency use authorization. So this material was not put out for you if you're not a physician or if you're not a medical person in the field. So they're going to tell you things about the virus and the vaccines that they're not telling you on the TV, the radio, and all of the other propaganda. So we're going to go over it. It's 4 sheets. And in the 4 sheets, there's 24 sheets to the physician. I condense it down to 4 sheets, utilizing the most important points to explain what this whole vaccine is. Okay, so we're going to get started. As we go along, I'm going to read the material because it's written material. And we want the individuals who are on the Zoom to hear it. So we have it in 2 parts. One is the New World Order, these 2 pages. And then the second 2 are dealing with the vaccine virus. And I'm going to repeat what was presented 2 weeks ago to reinforce the point, which is critical, because you hear about this on TV over and over and over and over, and mostly just about everything you hear on the mass media is coming from the corporate organizations that control most of the 95% of what the average American and others hear, and they're pushing it. And so we're going to go with the World Economic Forum. So let's look at this. Historically, there was an organization called the European Management Forum, which was started in 1971 by a European named Klaus Schwab. It was a non-profit foundation based in Geneva, Switzerland. What he did in others, they changed the name and used this organization, and they renamed it in 1987, the World Economic Forum, which is an international NGO. So it's the second page, and we're reading now. And what is the World Economic Forum? When you hear that on the news media, this is what should pop in your mind, who it is and what it is. It's an international organization, private. This is their, what do they call it? The statement form of what they do.
Mission.
The mission statement.
Mission.
International organization, private, in coordination in business, politics, and other activities to shape global policies and agenda. The membership is white, wealthy, male, elite, European, and American corporate capitalists, leaders who control the domestic, foreign policy of those countries throughout their government. So we're talking about the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, Germany, France, the colonizers. That's who this organization is. It's not the white Russian Putin. It's not the Asian. It's not the African. So let's be clear when you hear the World Economic Forum. They are the beneficiaries of the 1944 Bretton Woods Global Reset Structure post-World War II, which constructed the economic, political, military, global system to benefit these European and American corporations. That's what happened at the end of the war. And their international corporation. Now let's see what they did, who they are, who their fathers are, who their grandfathers are, when you talk about credibility. These white corporate leaders, whether it's from France or Germany or from Bill Gates and stuff, and when you check out Trump, Bill Gates, the rest of them, why there's so many billionaires, you will see that their grandparents came from Europe, off the boat with nothing. That's who they are. These are the men who's running this system here in the U.S. They're the beneficiaries of what? U.S. didn't just jump up. They're the beneficiaries of the African transatlantic slave trade, who did the extermination of indigenous people globally in the past 300 years, the capture and control of these people, their lands and their resources. They're the beneficiary and the creators of the feudalism, slavery, and capitalism. Capitalism is just a continuation of the slavery they put in. They are the creators of the Berlin and Brussels Conference of 1885-86, which partitioned Africa. They are the ones who wrote the Slave Code and the U.S. Constitution. U.S. Constitution is a slave code document. They fought against the African independent movement of 1900 to 1980. They are the originators of the New World Order, the New World Reset, 2020-21, based on the fourth industrial revolution, which is artificial intelligence, automation, internet, and robotics. Mass unemployment. They don't need you to work anymore. Total corporate control of society and their populations through government for the benefit of these corporate elite. Universal basic income. They're now giving the American people a check every month to pay their rent. I call it anti-riot insurance. You can't lay off 40 million people and have no jobs. We go on to the second page of the first handout, and it's called a Bretton Woods Conference. The purpose of why I reviewed the Bretton Woods Conference. The Bretton Woods Conference was a conference that set up the way the world would do global business from 1944 to present. And you will see why these white people, white corporate leaders who benefited from all of what we just said and was a beneficiary of World War II, the New World Order is that they don't run the things anymore. So they want a whole new structure. So let's look at the Bretton Woods Conference. It was July 1 to July 22, 1944. It was in New Hampshire, United States of America. 730 delegates, 44 allied independent countries. So you want to know how the world has been running? You got it here. And who called the conference? By the United States and Britain. Britain is going down, the United States is coming up. Africa, at this point, the conference was UK and United States, an allied independent country. If your country was not independent at that time, you didn't sit down here. So who were the 44 allied independent countries? African area, all of Africa, were colonized by the European states except Liberia and Ethiopia. So the ones calling the conference, US and Britain, and France and the rest of them had you colonized. So you couldn't sit to this conference to restructure the world order. The Asian area were colonized by European states except nationalist China. The Caribbean area, 1944. The Caribbean area, Central America, South America, area was colonized by the US and European countries. The Pacific area, colonized by the US and European countries. So the same people who are called in the New World Order, these were the people. White, European, and American corporations seized control because of certain factors. What was the agenda? What did they talk about? The agenda was to foster, remember you're talking about all white people, with a handful of Central South American puppets there. What was the agenda? What were they talking about? They were talking to foster international let me see, I wrote it. To foster international commerce and financial relations, international economic cooperation, rules and regulation of tariffs, trade, and open markets. The member states, white countries primarily, for currencies and other related activities. The related currency reserve account transaction. They were trying to work out how their money is going to work with each other. The US dollar became the reserve currency, backed by gold. Member states had to subscribe. You had to be a member of the IMF and World Bank. IMF and World Bank were the two global banks. US controlled the IMF, World Bank. So if you wanted to get a loan to rebuild your country, what was the agenda? The reconstruction of the infrastructure post-World War II of Europe and Asia, utilizing resources of Africa and its people. All that wood, cement, that built up Europe, they rebuilt Japan with, the United States came and rebuilt South Korea with, all come out of Africa. All the wood, cement, the food. That's what they were talking about. There were three major committees. Committee 1 was chaired by the US, and they were the ones who formulated the IMF, World Bank, because they control it to this day. The second committee was chaired by Britain. They are the World Bank, and the third was chaired by the Mexicans, the others. Concurrent to that, the US and Britain and their little European clique created the UN. And the UN was the United States and Europe and France and the allied countries. Those countries, a few in Caribbean, when you look at the sheet, a few in Asia, who were all under the yoke of the United States and Britain.
Right.
And they created the UN. And what is the most important organization, the UN Security Council, which deals with world peace? And so who they put? Who's on the permanent seat of your Security Council? England, France, nationalist China, because Chiang Kai-shek was with them at this point.
Right.
The Soviet Union and United States. Three white countries. Well, Russia technically controlled by Russia-controlled Soviet Union. 4 white countries and 1 Chinese. So just remember, the world order, when you hear what I call, you'll hear on the rule-based international order. The U.S. Secretary of State goes to the Chinese and say that you're violating the rule-based economic order. What he's saying is all of this tariff and trade, everything that the world has been running on, the rules and regulations, white people made it. But now China is here. Russia is back. Africa's now got its independence. Now all these countries have militaries. They have their banks. They have their organization. So the world that the white people used to run, the ones in the New World Order people, they ran everything. But it's over. So they keep saying, you don't want to follow the rule-based international order. You don't want to follow the order we white people set up for the world. And okay, so that's the first step. Let's go to the second handout. This is all for you to go to further studies to give you the foundation of where to start. And when these people are talking, what's the background? This second handout on health, we're going to go rather rapidly because it's meant for you to look it up. I'm going to read you an article I got out of the papers, the AM paper. They give it in New York City on the subways and they put it in the street. Free paper. So that again, as we said, we don't have any secret documents here. And it's from the AM today, which is the 14th of April. And this little fact sheet says it. They're giving you the difference between this experimental vaccine, this experimental gene therapy. Let me repeat. When they give you the vaccine, it's experimental. Let me go. When they give you this injection, it's not a vaccine. It's an experimental gene therapy.
Right.
This is what they say. And when we read the document, you'll see. They're telling you what it is. And it says here, the facts on COVID-19 VAX. I guess this is for the public, now to give you a little bit. The Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, a one-dose treatment, was approved for an emergency use by the FDA in February 2021. Out of more than 7 million doses of that vaccine administered in the United States, just 6 people contracted blood clots as side effects. The Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine is modeled after the traditional vaccine, in which a weakened version of the virus is injected into the body to provoke an immune response. See what it is? Now, if you look at page 2, it's just a quick schematic to show you the way the body works as your ancestors proved to the world and taught the world about medicine. For your body to evoke or make antibodies, it has to go through certain steps. And the steps are basically as listed. All it means is the virus comes in to your nose or your mouth. Many of the viruses are filtered and captured by the mucous membrane. So you get 1 million viruses. That mucous membrane is there to block and absorb a lot of the viruses.
Right.
Then it will go through the nose, the tonsils, and the throat. And there are antibodies waiting for these viruses. And then you have what they call the white blood cells and the T cell killer cells. The viruses also enter your digestive system because we know that about 90% of your entire immune system that protects you is in the digestive system.
Right.
Because that's what most comes in, okay? And it goes through the same process. The virus goes down, mucous membrane catches and filters it, antibodies produced, the killer cells, and the white blood cells hit it. So these are 2 levels there. Then it goes through what you call the immune system. It has to hit the circulatory system, the thymus gland, the liver, the kidneys, the spleen, the tonsils, the bone marrow, the lymph node. All of these things are battling containing and killing the virus. That's why most of the viral infections you get, the vast majority of people never come down with anything, because your body is battling it. And then when it gets through all of that, it has to hit what they call an extracellular fluid, which is the fluid surrounding the cell. And there's still a war going on. So 1 million viruses will enter you through your nose and your mouth. And you will get a fraction of that would be able to get past those symptoms to touch the rest of the cells about your body. That's why you get a headache, a sore throat, cold. And 95% of people don't get anything. We all know this. But nothing is said about it. And then when the antibodies are made primarily by what you call killer cells and white blood cells, right? Now, let's look at, and you will read what they said. Dr. Lewis did not say this. For the people who argued it the other day. Your government said this. The vaccine company said this. And we'll read it. What they're doing is they're taking a little small fraction of what they say is the virus. So remember, in order to make an antibody, the immune system has to have the whole virus. How am I going to say to you, make a car and only give you the blueprint to make tires? You need the entire blueprint. So the entire structure of the virus has to come in contact. The body comes in contact with it electrically, magnetically, electromagnetically, chemically, spatially, all of the energies. That's the immune system response. That's how the body works. So what they're doing here, they're taking a little piece of the virus. It's like taking a human body and taking just the toe and then say, make a new human body. Recognize this as a human body. It doesn't work. So they tell a very small fraction. They're putting it into what we call 2 lipid coats. And the purpose of doing that is so that when this little piece of virus put in 2 lipid coats, your cell membrane is made in the lipid, so they want lipid to dissolve. They put it into your arm, and it bypasses all of this. It bypasses the entire immune system. So they know that what they're doing does not stimulate the body to make antibodies. They know it pure and simple. It's not doing anything for you in that way. And then they want it to go to the cell, get into the cell membrane, and go right to the DNA in every one of your cells. But it don't work like that because your body has a protective layer. So it is not a vaccine, because the definition of a vaccine is a weakened or dead virus that's injected directly in so that it will touch all of what's in your immune system so the body can deal with it. They're putting a little fraction of the virus in a coat, totally bypassing all the mechanism right into your cell and telling it's going to help. Okay. The last sheet, if we get to it, about how to build your immune system, we go to. We're going to go to the third handout, which is 4 pages. For the record, okay, let me finish. Let me apologize. Let's go back to this again. Okay? So now you know what a vaccine is. You have to have a dead or weakened virus in its entirety so that the body will know how to deal with it. They're not doing that. They said there's a little snippet. Here they're going to tell you a little bit, and when we go into here, they tell you exactly what they're doing. Approved, so you now know the Johnson & Johnson is a standard vaccine. They weaken the virus, they put it in you, and your body can battle it. Now the body can fight against that virus. And really that's not the best way, because when you put it in the bloodstream, it bypasses the whole respiratory system, but we'll go on. Now they said that the Johnson & Johnson is the weakened virus. Now they're going to tell you about these vaccines, these genetic therapy. That's what they call it. That's what the license says. Genetic therapy, genetic therapy, genetic therapy. Now they're going to explain a little bit. This is to the public now. These the approval approved for emergency use in December 2020, the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, both of which requires 2 shots, are mRNA, little pieces of RNA. That's the genetic ones that actually has the responsibility for making things. This is what he said, it's RNA-based vaccine which uses synthetic copies, not even original, of a weakened COVID protein in order to train the body's immune system to fight the virus. It's a lie. Because if you bypassing the T cells and the killer cells, and you bypassing all of this, you ain't going to stimulate anything. So they tell you it's a little genetic particle, it's not even a regular virus. And they'll give you the exact details here.
Synthetic.
The FDA found, now here's another kicker that they tell you here, but when you look at the cut-up that I took of the 24 pages, that the vaccine company and the federal government is sent only to the physicians or medical people. You're not supposed to get it. You won't understand. They said this genetic thing they put in you and it goes right to the virus. This is what they said. The FDA found high efficacy rates for both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine of 95.3 and 94.3 respectively. High efficacy means that more people who receive the vaccine avoid infection. The CDC found that the Pfizer vaccine is 100% effective at preventing severe. How could they know that when they haven't done enough tests? They'll know it after a year or two, after injecting all of you and didn't put it up. They could not have done it because you don't have enough. You haven't done enough vaccine, you have to recover it. But that's okay. Now we're going to get into this verse here. It's 4 pages, and we'll go through the pages in 15 or 20 minutes. But this is critical for you to understand. This is the first page. Now, when we're going to do the first cover page, when we finish with that, we go to the second. I didn't number it for specific reasons. Okay, so now you're getting the information that they don't want you to have. It's only for doctors and scientists and stuff. You got to go on a link and all that. Okay, let's see what it says. It's called a fact sheet for health providers administering vaccination providers emergency use authorization of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine to prevent coronavirus disease 2019. Okay? Notice what they say. Emergency use authorization. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has issued an emergency use authorization to permit the emergency use of an unproven product. But they said the stuff was good. The Moderna 19 virus. They tell you right here. They're telling you right here. It's not approved. But they tell you 95% effective. The Moderna, we're going down to 30. The Moderna COVID vaccine, multiple dose vials stored frozen between these temperatures, stored in the original container to protect from light. Contraindications. Do not administer the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine to individuals who have known history of severe allergic reaction. How many millions of people got all kinds of allergies? Don't mean anything. Got to be severe. To any component of the COVID-19 vaccine. Warning. Appropriate medical treatment to manage immediate allergic reaction must be immediately available in the event any acute anaphylactic reaction occurs following administration of this vaccine. We drop down to the second one under warning. Monitor COVID-19 vaccine recipients for the occurrence of immediate adverse reaction according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And then they give you the whole list. Now, this is only speculation on my part. If only 10 people died from blood clots out of millions, would they have stopped it?
No.
That's the question.
Right.
Then we will speculate on what's causing the allergic reaction in the blood clot. They tell you what's here. We go down. Immunocompromised persons, including individuals receiving immunosuppressant therapy, cancer patients, may have a diminished immune response to the vaccine. Give it to everybody. The Moderna 19 vaccine may not prevent all vaccine recipients. They may not protect all vaccine. Adverse reaction. Adverse reactions reported in a clinical trial following administration of this vaccine. Vaccines include pain in the injection site, fatigue, headache, malaise, arthritis, chills, nausea, fever, swelling, injection site, etc. Severe allergic reaction, including anaphylactic. That's when the whole body is a massive allergic reaction to pushing you to death. Has been reported following the administration of COVID vaccine, blah, blah. Additional adverse reactions, some of which may be serious, may become apparent and more widespread as you do it. Down to the bottom of the page. Use with other vaccines. There is no information on the co-administration of the Moderna 19 vaccine with other vaccines. So they say if you get Moderna, you can't go to Pfizer because you mix up the money. The bottom line, now he said this was working good. The bottom line, vaccine, the significant known and potential risk and benefit of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine and the extent to which risks and benefits are unknown. They tell me we don't know what the hell the thing is do. We don't know the risk or the benefit. That's what they said to me, but not here. The benefits of the Moderna and the extent to which such risks and benefits are unknown. Information about available alternate vaccine and the risk and benefit of those alternatives. And then they give you the information where you can report any allergic reaction if you can get to the phone. Let's go to page 2. You may not make it. Come on. And you'll see where they tell you where the blood clots are coming from. Second page. We're moving pretty good. Corona-19 was defined based on the following criteria. The participant must be, now, they're going to give you the reason on why you should have the coronavirus or why you should be tested. And let's see if the criteria for why you should be tested or taken is any different than any other viral infection. Corona-19 was defined based on the following criteria. The participant, you'll get the nose swab, must have experienced at least 2 of the following systemic symptoms: fever, chill, malaise, headache, sore throat, olfactory and taste disorder. That's every viral infection. That's malaria. That's anything. Because that's how the white people used to go to Africa and determine if you're positive for HIV. If you walk into the clinic and you got a fever, a headache, sick, you're vomiting, diarrhea, you got HIV. But of course, they forgot about malaria, the waterborne disease.
And everything else.
Okay? So if you got any basic symptom of anything, in fact, most people who they're testing have 0. Nobody's coming. A cough and so they're testing everybody. But they say you're only supposed to test these people. And they experience at least one of the following respiratory symptoms: cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, or clinical radiological evidence of pneumonia and the participant. So the CDC says on their website, what they call a flu season from October 1, 2019 to April 4th, 2020, they say that there were at least 60,000 people killed by the regular flu, but never mention anything else. FDA has authorized the emergency use of Moderna 19 vaccine, which is not an FDA-approved vaccine. So they're telling you right now, we don't know what this thing is, but we have the authority under the, what you call this thing, the Patriot Act. They do anything they want. All they have to do is declare emergency. They lock down the whole neighborhood. You can't move around. The country's still under a partial martial law. It's not approved. They tell you this. That means that they didn't go through the regular approval, blah, blah, blah. But the government said it. The recipient of their caretaker the recipient or their caretaker have the option to accept or refuse the vaccine. Nuremberg trial. So for some reason, they know what's going on. You know, you got to raise hell. You have a right to refuse it. Available alternative. There is no approved alternate vaccine. I'm telling you, none of it is good. To Moderna COVID-19. There may be clinical trials or availability under the EAU and other COVID vaccine. Federal COVID-19 vaccination program. This vaccine is being made available for emergency use exclusively through the CDC COVID-19 vaccination program. Vaccination. Healthcare providers must enroll as providers in the vaccination program and comply with it. Vaccination providers may not charge a fee for it. However, vaccination providers may have appropriate. What they're telling you is your government is paying for this. You are paying for it. Pharmaceutical companies don't care. They're getting their money.
They're getting paid.
Okay? You are paying for it. Let's drop down to this line here. Individuals becoming aware of any potential violation of the CDC COVID vaccination program requirements are encouraged to report them to the office they give you. Now, authorization. We almost finished the second page. Authorization for issuing of the EUA.
What's EUA?
Emergency Use Authorization. Okay? It's a good question, so that you know. This is how the government works. The Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, has declared a public health emergency to justify the emergency use of drugs and biological products during the COVID pandemic. That's why you're forced to take it. The government said, you have a crisis here. And of course they went to all the experts, and all the experts come from the CDC and the drug company. In response, the FDA has issued an EUA, Emergency Use Authorization, for the unapproved product. The government didn't even approve it. The government knows it's no good. The government knows it's experimental. But the best issue an EUA, Emergency Use Authorization, for the unapproved product. But yes, it's good. They tell you it's good. We're ending here. Moderna vaccine 19, COVID-19, for active immunization to prevent the CDC-19 in individuals of age. They're telling you they're doing it to prevent it. They tell you right there, we don't know the benefit. We don't know the risk. It's experimental. Although limited scientific information is available. Who's the brother, the actor who gets on TV? Somebody sent me a link who says that if you believe me and trust me, I believe the government and the scientists. Somebody sent me that. One of the actors. I can't think of it, it'll come to me. Huh? Anyhow, they're putting everybody on it. And he said, and they're telling you, although limited information is available, based on the totality of the scientific evidence available today. I have scientific evidence here, but I can't find it. I got it jiggling in my back pocket. Although limited scientific information is available based on the totality of whatever evidence available today, it is reasonable to believe. Belief is the absence of knowledge. They tell you, based upon this, it's reasonable to believe that the COVID virus 19 may be effective for the prevention of COVID-19 in individuals as specified in the EUA. The EUA, Emergency Use Authorization, we're into the second page and we go to the third and fourth, is for the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine will end when the Secretary of HSS determines that the circumstances justifying the EUA no longer exist or when there is a change in the approved status of the product. So they said, we take this on indefinitely. The HSS said, you may be in it for a year. They tell you, this emergency use vaccine will end with the health and hospital. Yeah. So that means you're in for it. Long time. Third page, winding down.
Morgan Freeman.
Pardon me?
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. If you believe me, and people say,
That's God. That's God. He plays God.
Now, I'm not saying, look, we're not criticizing anybody who took the vaccine or willing. All we're doing is I'm reading from what the government says I should know as a physician, but you shouldn't know it. Third page, adverse reaction. Death. Life-threatening adverse reaction, inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization, or persistent or significant incapacitation or substantial disruption of the ability to conduct normal life, like a stroke or something like that. A congenital abnormal defect, an important medical event that's based on appropriate medical judgment, may jeopardize the individual, may require medical surgical intervention, blah, blah. We go to the second paragraph of third page. For additional information on the EAU, then they give you where you call the government, as if that's going to do you any good. The next chapter, this one here, it says, countermeasure injury compensation program. So now you know you have private companies making billions of dollars selling experimental vaccines that they admit does not stimulate the immune system, and they admit they don't know what it does.
And they can't be sued.
The federal government is paying for it, and let's see who's going to compensate you when you get hurt. Countermeasure, huh? You already know how it's rated. Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. The Countermeasure Injury Compensation Program is a federal program. Once you hear federal, the government's in it and the government is paying. Has been created to help pay for related costs of medical care and specific expenses to compensate people injured after use of certain medical countermeasures. Medical countermeasures are specific vaccines, medication, device, or other items used to prevent, diagnose, or treat the public during the health emergency or security threat. For more information, they give you another number. So the government's paying for it. The government, the private companies are making this experimental vaccine, and they're in partnership with the federal government, and when the private and federal work together, it's called fascism. So to remind you, in the United States at this point, not because I said it, it's because of what it is. When President Biden came into office, he signed, they say, 64 executive orders. Executive orders are orders that the president signs, and it has the effect of law. It's law. So you bypassing the Congress, right? And the only way it can be overridden is by another president. The Supreme Court and them, they try to challenge provision, but according to the U.S. Constitution, that's standing. And Roosevelt wrote, Franklin Roosevelt, he wrote about 3,600 executive orders. He ran the country. When you have a constitution like the United States has a constitution, and the laws are made by the president, who's the king, you have a constitutional dictatorship. Every time the president writes executive order, you have a constitutional dictatorship. It's only a democracy when your legislative people, the politicians who take bribes with the president, only when they make the law. And as the Pelosi lady, the lady that heads the thing, they asked about certain laws.
Checks and balances.
They asked about certain laws. Her reply was, we don't know what's in the law until we pass it. So she's telling you the lobbyists write it. You see what?
Right.
So because the lobbyists write it and the corporation pay off the Congress and the president, and we already presented the document where the universities already document that that's the way it is. So it's not I'm saying it. I don't say it. I don't put myself in liability. We don't put any of the rest of you in liability. So you have a constitutional dictatorship when the president signed the executive order. When the federal government partners with private industry, it's called fascism. So your government is fascist, constitutional dictatorship, and not a democracy. Not that you can do anything, because the U.S. Constitution is a slave document. You go through any of the slave code of any of the 13 colonies, and many of them before that have the slave code. The Constitution is identical to it, to the fugitive capture order. It's a slave document. So the federal government is going to pay. They go on, full emergency use authorization. Prescription. So the doctors, this to me I think is letting the doctor know you don't have to worry about giving the vaccine and the person died, you getting sued. The government's going to take care of it. You could be assured that we have the federal government behind you. You're immune. You can, as my father told me, he said, you doctors, y'all have a license to kill people. That's what it boils down to. They're telling the doctors, you're not getting. And don't worry about the liability. You don't have to worry about it. Don't worry about the money. You just follow rules and work, make your little money, don't give any headaches, then you'll be all right. So the government is paying for it, hooked up with pushing a private corporation's product, fascism. President signed an executive order, constitutional dictatorship. There is no democracy. And the doctors now, don't worry, you can give it. Just sign up properly. Follow all rules and regulations. No matter how many people die, how many people, you don't have liability. The government has liability. Full emergency use authorization, prescription information. Moderna vaccine authorized for use under the emergency use authorization for active immunity to prevent COVID disease 19 caused by severity. Dosage and administration for intramuscular injection only. It's very critical because when you look up, we almost finished, when you look up they take this little genetic piece of gene based upon what they say, not Dr. Lewis, because I didn't do it and I don't have that expertise. So I take a disclaimer right there, I didn't say it, but I'm reading here. Take a little genetic piece and they wrap it around some oil, because the cell membrane is lipid, fat. And so they put it in a little lipid so that it can go through the cell membrane. And then later on you will read the ingredients to see what's causing the clots. They specify that in adverse reaction, those different lipids that they're using to surround this little piece of genetic, that the lipid is supposed to get to and penetrate the cell membrane, lipid on lipid dissolve in it. They say, right there on all the side effects, these, like some of these oils, they take it as laxative. You can take these as laxative. You can overdose on it. But they tell you specifically, when these oils are used for IM injections, that's when they become toxic. Right here. So they're letting the doctor know, but in an indirect way, because you have familiarity with it, and so you know what they're talking about. Okay, Moderna vaccine causes acute severe respiratory syndrome associated in 18 years of age. So you can't give it to anybody under 18 because they didn't test it. Preparation for administration. Moderna, we're now on 2-1 on the third sheet. The preparation for administration, Moderna vaccine, multiple dose, which contains frozen suspension that does not contain a preservative. That's why it has to be stored. Dosage and strength. Moderna COVID-19 vaccine is a suspension for intramuscular injection, a single dose, 0.5. Contraindications. We're winding down to the last sheet, but we're on the bottom of the third. Counter-indication. Do not administer Moderna 19 vaccine to individuals with known history of severe allergies. And it goes on. So many people have allergies. We're on the fourth and last page. Okay. The top, description. The Moderna COVID-19 vaccine is provided as a white, off-white suspension. Something like Coke. For those who know or don't know about it. Who knows what these people are doing with this? As a white to off-white suspension for IM injection. Each 0.5 ml doses of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine contains 100 micrograms of nucleoside, that's the RNA. Modified, not even the original RNA, they modified the thing. Measured RNA, wherever they get an RNA from, it's not even the authentic piece of the virus. Modified messenger RNA encoding the pre-fusion stabilization spike glycoprotein of SARS. The spike protein is one of the types of protein that the body uses to fight viruses. So they tell you here that is not even a legitimate piece. It goes on. Each dose of the Moderna COVID vaccine contains the following ingredients. A total lipid content of 1.9 mg SM102 polyethylene glycol. You look up polyethylene glycol and all of them, they tell you right away. Iron injection is toxic. 2,000 dimethylsterol glycol, DMG. Cholesterol, 1-2 desterol SN glycoside. 3 phosphocholine, 0.31 milligrams of tromethion, hydrochloride, and sugar. So they put all of these things in that from the literature. So you say, how do you know it's causing clots? I don't know it's causing clots. But if you tell me that you putting all this in these vaccines, and you tell me on the other hand that these ingredients you put in are toxic, I am, so you take it from any way you want. COVID-19 vaccine does not contain a preservative. Number 14 dash, as we wind down. The nucleoside, that's supposed to be the little genetic piece, modified mRNA. It's not even official, they modified it in the Moderna 19 vaccine is formulated in a lipid particle which enables delivery of the nucleoside, that little piece of RNA, modified RNA, into the host cell to allow expression to go to the DNA to respond to mating. We ending here, and then I'll take 5-minute comment, then we break. Pregnancy. There is a pregnancy exposure registry that monitors pregnancy outcome in women exposed to COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy. Women who are vaccinated with Moderna COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy are encouraged to enroll in the registry. Any woman who's pregnant or near pregnant, if they have the vaccine, they said they will provide you with something to abort the baby.
Ooh.
Wow.
Risk summary. All pregnancies have a risk of birth defects, loss, or other adverse outcome. In the U.S. general population, the estimated background risk of major birth defects and miscarriage and the clinically recognized, and they give you this. And we wind down here, then I'll make a few comments, we break in question and answer. Data, risk summary. Data are not available to assess the effect of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine on the breastfed infant or its milk or its production. Pediatric use. Safety and efficacy has not been assessed in people less than 18 years of age. So they tell you they didn't assess it. Then how are you going to produce a vaccine for children? And you never have you haven't tested it, but we need a vaccine for children. Emergency use authorization Moderna 19 does not include use in individuals younger than 18. And then we finish, we break, and then we have question and answer, and you have to, whatever you got to get clear in your mind. Last paragraph, geriatric use. Clinical studies of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine included participants 65 years of age and older receiving vaccination or placebo. And their data contributes to the overall. Okay. So that is 4 pages of 24 pages that I drew down for physicians. I cut and pasted the most important part. Most of the rest of it was just a lot of statistics and other things like that. Okay, so we'll break, and then we'll go and we'll talk about a few other different things, the politics of it and stuff, and we'll come back. It's 9 o'clock, we'll come back at 10 minutes after. And we go with question and answers or whatever you want to do until the brother decides it's over. Okay?
All right.
Okay, give Dr. Lewis a big hand. We're going to have a little 5-minute break. 10 minutes, refreshments right there. If you want coffee and everything is over in the other room. Just, we got napkins and tissues if you want coffee and everything, so go help yourself. When we come back, I'm going to... Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the refreshments. Hello, Mike. Brother Mike. Okay, we're going to come back. We're going to do part 2, and we're going to have a question, not a debate. Anybody have a question on the Zoom, you can raise your hand and ask Doc any questions you want to ask. So he's going to talk, and we're going to round it out, question and answer. If anybody on the Zoom want to contribute to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr., I have my Cash App in the chat if you want to help out with the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. If you want to listen to Community Cop, you go on YouTube, Community Cop, all the lectures is coming up. And if you want to listen to any lecture under the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr.'s History Club, you could go on YouTube, type in BK William Mackey Jr.'s History Club, and you could get a list of all the lectures we do here. You could get last week and follow in what Dr. Lewis was talking about. Or if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you can see the lectures on my Facebook page. Without further ado, we're going to turn the meeting back over to Dr. Lewis and anybody from the group. If you got any questions, no debate, just questions.
Just 1 second, brother. What I'd like to make is just a few observations, and then we take the question and answer. I was given a number of links by individuals here in the lecture who help to keep me informed like we're supposed to keep each other informed. And one of the links was two African doctors in Kenya, was on German TV. And the commentators were asking them questions about the COVID virus. And we'll give you the link before we go. We're asking about the COVID virus. And they were in Kenya. And the doctors were saying, in reference to the vaccine, that a vaccine or any type of mechanism should have 4 criteria. He says, 1 criteria, is it necessary? The second question, the efficacy, does it work? The third is it safe? And the fourth is the cost. Because so he asked these questions. I'm just going to jump around a little bit to put a little picture. The World Health Organization, which is part of the UN. UN was constructed structurally by the United States, England, and the white countries. That's why the Security Council has England, France, US, Nationalist China, and the Soviet Union there, and no African or Asian.
Right, permanent members.
Yeah. The World Health Organization, because of the status of the UN, is considered like the go-to structure. When any country, we can go to the UN, to the World Health Organization, get accurate information, disinformation, that information. So I'm gonna make a statement, and it's proven out by looking at what is recommended to the world. The World Health Organization to this day is funded by the United States of America. The second largest contributor is the Bill Gates Foundation. And the third is the UK, United Kingdom. So all of the information, the official this and the official that comes from the World Health Organization. And the white, European, and American pharmaceutical companies control the World Health Organization in the committees and everything else. So now a lot of the African countries are beginning, not to say that they didn't know it, I'm just making a general statement, beginning to understand it. So in this link that the brother sent to me, the 2 Kenyan doctors were asking whether or not the vaccine that the World Health Organization said to get is worth getting. See, I was a little surprised to find out not only the US have it and the European has it, but the Russians got one, the Indians got one, everybody got one, so they're all getting into the ball game or how they're going to make money on somebody.
Cuba got it.
And he said, we looked at is it necessary, this vaccine?
Necessity.
These are 2 doctors on the board analyzing, making a recommendation to their government and their people about this vaccine. Is it necessary? Is it efficacious? Is it safe? And is it cost effective? And they came up with the conclusion that they have many medicines, ivermectin and vitamins and minerals to boost your immune system.
Right. Absolutely.
And they quoted a statistic. They said that they had, because we have discussion, how do you know that this thing isn't ravaging Africa? The only country in Africa that really buys these vaccines is South Africa, because the whites still run the medical thing here.
Right.
So the 2 Kenyan, we'll give you the link before we go, the 2 Kenyan doctors says, we had 1,900 COVID deaths. Because I've gone through on the internet and the United States, white people and people in Europe said that the reason the COVID is low in Africa because the reporting is not good. Or they don't keep good records, or whatever excuse. So the two elder physicians said they had 1,900 confirmed cases of COVID deaths. He said Kenya has 53 million people. He says that the percentage of people with death is 0.003. He said you have a greater chance of dying from malaria or diarrhea than here. So obviously, is it necessary? No. Plus they had ivermectin and so many other things. Does it work? Efficacy? They said, nobody knows. They don't even know. Is it safe? He said, the people who are telling us, the World Health Organization, they don't know. And is it cost effective? He says, obviously not. So I would suspect, but I can't prove, that that's what you have throughout the continent. And then there was another link that the brother had sent. Dr. Cole will give you that link. White American, got his clinic, and so many years of treating patients. He said, now these are things you got to check out. He said ivermectin, which won the Nobel Prize for effectiveness and safety, that at least 4 billion people have used it, and you don't have this ravaging death toll that you have in Europe and the United States. Is all of these deaths in Europe and the United States really deaths because of ineptness of the public health system, or is it because they want to push the vaccine? It's a question you have to ask after you do your research. But he said 4 billion people. So I would imagine that if we do our homework, and let's see whether or not this COVID thing, is COVID really devastating the 660 million people live in Central, South America, and Caribbean. You see, where are the numbers? 1.4 billion in the continent. Where are the numbers? So that's the comment that I want to make to you. So they said no. It is not necessary. It is not efficacious. It is not safe. And we're not spending the money. And one other African country that we know, Tanzania, the brother who died, Magufuli. Now, we mentioned the last time that we have an elder sister, woman, who's now the president of Tanzania.
That's correct.
And the president of Magufuli said, he tested goats are positive, tested pigs are positive, and birds.
That's right.
We don't need this. Said we're going with what we know works. And then when you hear the speech or talk of one of the elder sisters who are one of the former ambassadors to the African Union, who they kind of pushed aside because she criticized some of the African countries for still using French money. She said, we know 50% of all the medicines that come in from the United States and Europe are poison. We got to do our own medicine. So that's the main thing that I'm saying to you to check out. Don't think that our African people are not aware of the situation. So somebody will say to me, how do you make that? Go check on the World Health Organization where the money's coming from and who runs the committees. Okay, let's have the question and answers because we have time.
Okay, this question is from one of the Zoom, and this question is Claude. Brother Claude is asking, how long does the injection stay in the body?
I don't know. What you do is you go to Moderna, ask your doctor, the one who gives you injection. You go on, you have all of the information here. You go on the CDC, and you go on the Moderna, and you go on the United States Department of Health, and you ask them that question. Because they're the ones who approved it. They're the ones who's making it. I'm not qualified to answer the question. If you want that answer, you have the appropriate authorities, the U.S. government, who approve genetic modifying treatment for the treatment of only they can answer that question. Next question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Wait a second. Next question. Then
I'm an asthmatic. Hello? I'm an asthmatic. So that's one of the reasons why I took the vaccine, is because I know the problem of hard breathing. I couldn't believe being on a respirator. All right? If I have a problem with this asthma, I could imagine if this COVID vaccine gets in my lungs and I have a worse problem. All right? That's one of the reasons why I...
Okay. That's a good reason. Everybody has a right. Remember, still we're under the Nuremberg law that they passed in Germany, that right now you have a right to refuse it. According to the documents coming out, you have a right to refuse the injection. They haven't gotten to the point of trying to make it a rule or a law. And let's see what happens. Get this second. Okay.
My question is, can the United States government make it mandatory that all its citizens in the United States have to take the vaccine? And it looks like they are leaning towards it.
Again, I cannot answer. The question was, can the United States government,
Under martial laws,
Come on,
yes.
be quiet, be quiet. Let him answer the question.
can the United States government force everyone to take it? We gotta wait and see. I don't have a clue to whether, I can't answer that question. And the people who are trying to put you under the New World thing, where they want to use all the robots and everything to make everything and put 40, 50 million people out of work and don't want you to participate, you have to ask them that question. Do they have any idea what's going to happen? Do they have any idea if they try to make it mandatory? If you start checking, they have a compliance problem. And I don't know the number of people, or Americans, or whatever you want to call them, who have taken or not taken. Yes. I got this brother there. Gotta talk loud, I can't hear good, so the people can hear me.
People can hear
That was
those.
the first gentleman's question on the Zoom. The vaccines are said to have actually, for people who didn't have any symptoms, they have a number of cases around the world where after they got the shots, they had vaccines, like you said, they got the symptoms, some people died, so that answers the first gentleman's question. Second thing, were you saying, somebody else
No,
asked a
it's
question?
a question.
Yes, I'm saying, there was another question I had.
No, you asking him the question.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm trying to ask a question. There was
Okay.
another question I asked based, the Johnson & Johnson. You were saying that, yeah, you said that you were saying that it's a traditional vaccine, more so than the Pfizer and Moderna.
I'm not saying it. The newspaper and the federal government, wait now, let's be specific. The definition that they use in this country and the world is when you use the word vaccine, they usually mean a virus or bacteria that they have weakened or so-called dead. They inject it into your body as a unit that holds like a dead body or a live body. And because of the whole unit of the virus or bacteria, and it goes through the immune system has an opportunity to do what it has to do, to recognize it, to fight it back. That's the definition, okay, of let's be clear now so people don't say I said it's not a vaccine. The government says the traditional vaccine is a weakened virus or bacteria that's injected. What you have here, by that definition that the world uses, this is not a vaccination.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
My question was,
Go on.
I'm just trying to get clarity. You were saying, I agree with you when you said the Johnson & Johnson. By the way, I agree with a lot of things you're saying. This is not a big like you said. This is just for everybody's understanding. You said there were 6 blood clots. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they said it's almost the same chemistry, the same type of technology as AstraZeneca, which is already 20 European countries already stopped. So when they say 6, I'm very skeptical of that number because according to a Harvard study, based upon the stuff they did put in that VARS system, they only estimate about 1 to 10% of people actually putting those adverse reactions in it. So that 6%, that 6 that they're saying could actually be something larger. They know there's more than 6, they just put in 6. They would not even stop it if it was just 6. But they put in the 6 so they can say, okay, it's rare.
Yes.
I agree with almost 100%. Just keep that in mind, I'm not debating. So my question was, so you answered the question, but I have another question, so thank you.
Lady V, you got a question?
Actually,
Gotta talk loud.
this is the Declaration of Human Rights, right? And the Constitution. Between the two, they cannot make you take any vaccination and they cannot determine your religion.
The only comment that I have is, I don't have a comment. What I would say to you is, They make the rules and regulations based upon the way they want it. That declaration of this and that doesn't mean anything to these people. To me, if you were asking me, will they try to push it? We have to wait to see how desperate they are. But just the rules of this and the declaration of this, look, they say Martin Luther King said the United States is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. And the statistics show this.
That's right.
When you can have a military, the people ask, why is it that the United States didn't wind down the military and their weapons and stuff? If you're going to go around the world to steal, we conquered Japan, so we got to go into Japan, we got to use guns, we're going to control Japan's economy, the corporation. We're going to control Taiwan's economy. We're going to control
Korea.
What is the purpose of the European Union and NATO? To keep Russia out of Europe and to keep Germany down so that the United States corporation can penetrate and dominate the economy. That's the whole thing about Russia. So all bets are off. When you can have slavery and you can do to human beings what you did, piece of paper don't mean anything. You have what they call the Patriot Act. Just read it. It displaces the Constitution. You don't have a Constitution. The country's running on the Patriot Act.
That's right.
Okay, and you have the emergency authorization to allow them to use this. What if they just say, the emergency authorization says we need to inject everybody with Clorox? But how are you going to stop it? It's the amount of resistance that you're going to try to get. So, as far as I'm concerned, the law with the people who run it doesn't mean anything. Yes.
Okay, we have two questions from two people from the Zoom. One of the questions is from Sister Keisha that asked Doc about the vaccine exempt form. And then the next question is, what are your thoughts about the treatment that Cuba is providing?
First of all, I don't know anything about vaccine exempt form, so I can't comment. Second, I can't comment on what Cuba is doing because I don't have any statistics of what they're doing. I can comment about what I heard or read or saw in reference to that reference that was provided to me, because I actually saw these two human beings, Africans, with their credentials, and they're making the statement that they have 53 million Kenyans and only 2,000 deaths. So I have to say, okay, if this is correct, I have to assume it's correct, then that tells me right away they're already not going to use a vaccine. They already got a cure. Now I don't know the status of Cuba, so I can't answer that question. But at least you have a prototype to know that people around the world, who's having the most problem with this virus, so they say, United States and Western Europe.
That's right.
Yes. What's the other question, Ray?
It was Cuba and,
Yeah. Okay, I can answer the
Cuba
question.
and
They're all excellent questions, and we're trying to answer them without drawing a conclusion. Nobody can look back and say, he said this, he said he got no proof. There's a website that tells, don't argue with me. You go argue with the Kenyan society. You go argue with the Tanzanian. And I would assume most African countries not buying it, because they don't have the money if they want. They're smart enough to know. Remember what we said about the World Health Organization? The people telling you to get the vaccine, they were their grandfather to partition Africa. Their fathers raped your mother and father. I'm not buying it. That's me personally.
Put pressure also.
I'm with you.
to take-
Yes. Okay. Let the sister go first. Yes.
you said you extracted this information from a document that was sent out to you as a medical.
It wasn't sent out to me.
Well, not only you, but
Yeah.
MD.
When you go on the website,
Okay.
they separate, let me be clear, they separate who's asking for it. If you're a physician or somebody, you hit this one and you get your documentation. And if you're not, you hit this one. So they made a distinction. Okay, yes.
Okay, so now this what I have in my hand. Can a person who is not an MD get this information?
I believe so.
Center for Disease
You go, no,
Control.
what you do is you go on the internet, and when you, I can give you the specific, you can use this website. It'll come up, and it say differentiate for medical people and non-medical. Now, if you can hit the medical, and it'll come through, then you got it,
Right.
okay?
But
Yeah.
so you don't know whether it's the same thing between these two
Yeah.
buttons I have to click?
Right, because I did not push the
Right.
button for the people.
Okay.
So you will know, and then you report to us next. Are they telling the people the same thing?
Okay, so you can, all right.
Excellent question. Next. Yes.
I believe the Cubans are using interferon. Do you have
Yes,
any?
yes.
It's a fair.
Yes. Right.
The Cubans are using interferon. I do not have any information about the use of or the efficacy of interferon. So I can't answer the question. Only thing I can say is, through ignorance, is the body makes interferon naturally. So I don't know what happens when you administer interferon this way. I don't have a clue, so I can't answer the question, but the body makes, interferon is one of those generalized antibodies the body makes.
And from the video with the two Kenyan doctors, I believe they said that the COVID-19 problem is not an African problem or an Asian problem, but a European, American, and South American problem. How do you,
I can't answer the question because when you say a South American problem, what does that imply? You have people in South America who are African, who are indigenous, who's white and got all mixed up,
Brazil.
living at different types of places. You got to be more specific. See, that's why I like that article, the reference that was given me, specifically talking to these two Kenyan doctors with their certification. I see it, I hear it, and this is what they said. Now it's up to me to double check it. Other than that, I can't tell you what any other country, just like we don't know what figures these people are giving you, whether it's accurate or not.
That's right.
Yes.
Don't they mean the government, the US government, UK government, and South America government? When they say it's a problem in these places, are
But
they
they-
talking about the people?
No, usually when they say South America, they mean
But you
Brazil.
see,
That's the biggest country.
Now, wait a second, you have to be specific. There's 660 million people living in the Caribbean, roughly,
Yes.
living in Central South America. Who did the counting? You see, they always tell me in 1917, what you call the Spanish flu killed 17 million people. Okay, who was counting? I don't mean the push. Who went around Africa?
That's right.
That's right.
Who was the
Good question.
next?
Lady B, you got a question?
Okay.
This one is concerning, this is outside of your lecture.
Yeah.
This is concerning, I want to mention, with the colonial virus, what's going on in St. Vincent right now, where they're telling people that you should get the vaccine for us to evacuate you. Would that not mean that that's like telling a fireman showing up at your house and saying, let me vaccinate you before I take you out of the burning building? You're familiar with the volcano that hit?
Yeah.
So that's an economic blackmail, more or less. But they would never do that to they doing that to an African people, but they would not do that to any European person.
Let me just make this point.
Worse in Israel.
Let me make the point. The next time that I present,
Yes, sir.
I will present the UN. And I will give you the documentation, you see the picture, everything. The non-white people, they had a conference in Bolivia in 2017. And the world countries met. Russia and China was there, and they excluded all white people. US, Canada, and Europe, the ones who've been causing trouble. And there is in motion by all the rest of the people who have been victims of the white people to put together another UN. And they're not excluded. The Europeans and American white people, they're not excluded, they're excluded. So they're working on, whatever they're working on, they're working to change the world. And that's why the World Health Organization said, you want to, they tell China, you want to break the rule-based international order. The rule-based international order is what the Europeans set up with the World Bank, the IMF, and the UN. The rest of the world said, we don't want that. So at least, and then there's an organization called Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. About 10 or 15 years ago. It comprised all of the people in Central America, all of the people in the Caribbean, and all of the people in South America. Regardless of language and color and race, okay? Before they formed that union, there was a union that had those in it, but Canada and the U.S. was part of it. Canada, U.S., and all of them. And I'm probably gonna get it wrong. It's called the Community of American States, something like that. Don't pin me down because I may have community. Let me just call it Community of American States because I forget the name. The Community of American States was all of the Central American, Caribbean, and South America, including Canada and U.S.
What's that, Calcom?
Wait, no, it's not. But listen to what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
And we have to check it. I'm calling it Community of American States. Canada and the U.S., all of the Central American, South American, and Caribbean. About 10 years later, about 10 years ago, the Caribbean, the Central American, and Latin American formulated a whole nother, the same group of people, Caribbean, Central America, South America, that new organization excluded the U.S. and Canada. So who did they not want to be bothered with? White people. You understand what I'm saying? Not because I say it, because you see what the structures are happening here. So when I pick up and I said, you know, they used to be the community of American states. Probably I'm saying it wrong. But all of Central America, South American, and Latin American. South American, Central American, and the Caribbean with the United States and Canada. The United States and Canada dominated. Coups and everything. So they got tired of it. So they restructured it. The same group of people, Caribbean, South American, and Central American, and they named it the Community of Latin American Caribbean State. They don't want the U.S. and Canada in the clique. The same way in 2013, the world met. Russia and China came there, and they want to form, they're forming a new UN without the United States, Canada, and the white people. Now they say, well, Dr. Lewis, you said white. I just go along with what they say. You ever call it Five Eyes? Five Eyes. England, UK, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. All white people coming out of England that exterminated indigenous people. Everybody got their clique in their club. So I personally, whatever they tell me, I have to check it out. That's not to say you could believe whatever you want. I'm not telling you to believe. I got to check it out the best way that I can. Yes. Okay, wait, he didn't get it.
COVID-19 and things like SARS aside, what do you think of just real vaccines, period? Like, what do you think of the vaccine for polio?
Okay, the best way to answer the question, because I don't remember all the details, but I have the charts and diagrams you can look at. This polio, German measles, chickenpox, and mumps, that come out of Europe when they came over here. The vaccination, when you see the charts, of measles, mumps, chickenpox, and a number of these things, you will see that the incidence in the Americas, the Caribbean, and Europe, before the vaccination for chickenpox, measles, and mumps, it already been 95% eradicated. So most of the chickenpox, measles, mumps, and polio, which they have documentation, the polio vaccine gave the people polio.
Yeah.
That's what it showed. The polio vaccine gave most of the people who got polio. So that's record about answer that question.
That's right.
The other question is, maybe I can find the charts the next time I come and I'll just hand it out, is that when you look at the incidence of measles, mumps, chickenpox, etc., in the United States, Western Europe, and the Caribbean, before the vaccination program began, the incident of disease had gone down from 95%, it wasn't there. People were able, because remember, the Europeans basically brought it here. They come to New York, it's crowded, there's stool in the street. When they got people better living conditions, cleaner water, and spread out in fruit, it all went away. So to answer your question, the document shows that polio was, most of the polio that people got comes from the vaccine, and that the chart showed that measles, mumps, chickenpox in the United States, Caribbean, part of Europe, had already, the incident had dropped to 95% to 5% before the vaccination program. For me, the vaccine, yeah, I guess I could say it.
Say it.
My children don't get vaccinated.
What you said?
My grandchildren don't get vaccinated. Okay?
That's right.
So to answer your question, your immune system was here to do what it did. No, because some companies want to make money doing it. One time when we get a chance, we go through the Flexner, Flexner, the Flexner report. And I've been a physician for 48 years, and I didn't know about this report only 5 years ago, because they hide everything. The Flexner report was when 1912, Rockefeller and DuPont, all these, they got together to make money. And they put together this report called Flexner Report. And the Flexner Report restructured medicine in the United States and Canada. Before then, people taught each other. You would, you get an apprentice. They have a lot of different clinics and small things. Everybody teaching. So Rockefeller Mill says, they had the guy write it up. And he wrote it up. He says, look, medicine in the United States and Canada have to be restructured. In order for you to be a doctor, and what's the only medicine going to be approved, all of these schools and all of these ways of you learning, apprentice, no longer accepted. The only medicine that's going to be legal, you had to go to a college, a medical school, attached to a college. Now, who was taking care of most of the children? The birth, midwife, and everything. Who was taking care of most of them in the United States before 1912? Women. What kind of women? African women. We were the midwives. You were the doctors. You had the daycare centers. The doctors at that time was practicing delivery with dolls. The white men. Dolls. But you're the one who did the daycare center, you the one who did the delivery, midwife, everything. All of that is no good. Only white men can deliver. Only white men can do this. So what the Flexner report says, all of those schools are learning, so he knows about herbs and teas, and like Dr. Sabian, you don't have to go to school. You're a master herbalist. And you're a master of the delivering the baby. And you already have your network of daycare centers. And you are treating high blood pressure by walking, by taking vitamin B3, taking hot showers, taking Epsom salt. Epsom salt is magnesium.
Right.
And magnesium opens up blood vessels. When the muscle contracts, you need calcium and magnesium to open. So we know about Epsom salt, magnesium, that stop lock bottom, drive down your pressure. All of this proven things that people have been doing for hundreds of years. The indigenous people, the African people, and some white, none of that. We wiping all that out. That's no good. And the only thing that's approved is medicines from the pharmaceutical. Now, there was no pharmaceutical companies. All those companies that now are pharmaceutical, they made chemicals, fertilizers, and gunpowder. That's all they made, fertilizers and gunpowder. And now, they're going to make chemicals for medicines. It takes some of that thing over here. So you can no longer go to your bush and your teas and your herbs. That's all out. So there were a lot of schools and, you know, different things. They banned it. They dried up the money and they banned it. And the document says, at that point, if you want to be a doctor, you have to be white. And no women. So they forbid women to go to, so in other words, we're going to set up this school, medical school, of idiots, the doctors and white men didn't know what they're doing. Set up this as medical school. This medical school has to be attached to a white university. It can only have men, no women. And there were 7 African-based medical schools, Howard, Meharry, and 5 others. They closed down the 5, kept Meharry and Howard together for the Negro doctors. The Negro doctors can only treat Negro patients. And there was a doctor, I forgot his name, maybe somebody will do it. He was the father of OBGYN. I can't think of his name. Who was it?
Not George Washington Carver.
Say that again?
Marion Sims.
Sims?
Marion
okay,
Sims.
yeah. He's the father of GYN.
Oh, yeah.
And he was the one with breeches doing all these surgeries on African women with no
Oh, that's
anesthesia.
Sims, yeah, definitely.
Sims,
Horrid.
okay?
Devil.
And he practiced. How many black children did he do? And that's who these white doctors, that's their hero. I'm a physician.
Right.
And you go in, and you black, and if you smart, they'll take you out. You gotta leave.
That's right.
You got to leave. Walter Maddox isn't the only one who suffered in these positions. They don't, I found out, white people, for whatever reason, they hate you. Deep, deep hate.
Here.
So in that flexible report, only one going to school, a white male. You only can go to these few medical schools here. No women. Negroes will take care of the Negro people. And all the medicines of this poison that coming out of these factories that make fertilizer and gunpowder, they turn them into pharmaceutical companies. That's the history. Of course you didn't think you were going to tell us this in medical school because everything is good. You have to learn this when you get out. And any one of us who is any profession or whatever we are here, we all know what we all go through in this society. And you do what you have to do. So that was the Flexner report. You only goes here, and every kind of treatment that you could do to keep yourself healthy is not approved, and it's still to this day. It's worse.
Yes.
Death by medicine. 4 or 5 doctors did the statistics for 5 years. Said the medical profession kills 700,000 people a year doing things they shouldn't do.
So
You know, this is what you're faced with. Here, yes. Talk, you gotta say the question, talk loud, I can't hear so good.
Confirm you was talking about the vaccine.
Yeah?
Smallpox was not cured by the cowpox vaccine. That's correct?
I can't answer the question.
Well-
Let me answer the question this way.
No, let the doctor answer.
Let me ask the question this way, because you got to be careful when I, as a person, I don't care, I'm a medical doctor, but I have to be careful to give people the right information. You ask yourself the question.
Can I rephrase it, bro? There's a possibility, from what research I've done, that smallpox was not cured by the cowpox vaccine. Polio, like you said, was relabeled as a different form of paralysis. So actually, polio may have not gone away. They have, this is research I've done, this is not just my own speculation. Flaccid cell paralysis, muscular paralysis, And like you said, measles was gone 99% before vaccine was ever invented.
Almost all of the vaccines that you're doing now.
Now, you know Judy Mikovich?
No.
The Judy Mikovich is the person that the Nation of Islam hired to give information on these shots.
Right.
Or spare, as we say, gene therapy. Just confirm this, just.
Yeah, tell them what he said, because we need information from everybody.
Right. Supposedly, people of African descent, black people, they cannot degrade RNA viruses. In fact, I think your RNA viruses. The measles, the MMR vaccine, the government covered that up because supposedly there was incidents of autism in black boys. And still to this day, they cover that up. They
burn the records.
Just like they did with Enron and some of these, Enron and this Bernie Madoff, the Ponzi scheme.
Right.
Okay. Really quick. Okay, they said the shots possibly give neuroinflammation. There's a whole concern. The pathogenic priming or the cytokine storm that happened with the shots. That's my concern with the shots. It's not what happens immediately when you get the shot, it's what happens 3 or 4 months from now. And particularly people have to are more susceptible to this so-called pathogenic priming or the neuroinflammation, blood inflammation. In other words, you can get autoimmune conditions and stuff like this. This according to Judy Mikovich and other experts. They're concerned about what's going to happen 3 or 4 months from now. Not so much now. When you get the shot now, you got the polyethylene glycol. That's going to go up the anaphylactic shock, which people are passing away in those nursing homes around the world, even here. But there's also concern of the pathogenic priming that occurs 3 or 4 months from now, or a year, or 2 years, or 5 years from now. I'm sure you heard that. And so basically, my question to you is: people with African descent more susceptible? Oh, okay. So basically, they said you cannot create vaccine. It's well known in the medical industry you cannot create vaccines for retroviruses, HIV, XMNR, Corona, SARS without causing this type of pathogenic priming. You know what I'm saying? And so basically, people have said they produce more antibodies. So there's antibody-dependent enhancement. In black males, is twice the antibodies in, say, other groups. So if you give these RNA-type vaccines, there's going to be more of these. This is the fear it's going to happen, and they know this too, but they just still let it go on. So the concern I have, and I'm sure you have, is that
also the impotence. Impotence. But go ahead.
Yeah. So when people say that you
Question, brother, come on.
Yeah. I got some stuff already. So when they say that, when some people say, well, they can't design a vaccine to target certain groups, they can actually do it based upon the fact that your genetics is actually different from, say, a European. So they can still design the same vaccine, but because we have more as they say,
Question.
Question.
I've asked a
Okay,
question.
wind it up.
I've asked a question, you're just not listening. I've already asked you some question.
Wind it up. Okay, go on. Okay,
He
go on.
also said he wants other people to give information, right?
Just a question.
Okay.
Brother, he said he wants other people to give
you went, man.
information.
Okay, let him give. Okay.
He said he wants us to express
Okay,
himself.
so tell us more. Tell us more.
He said he
Okay.
Come on.
You're right. Just give it to it. Okay, we're not stopping you. Just give it to us.
So basically, I want.
Sum it up.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted you to confirm these things. That's all.
Okay. So let me respond to what you said. I cannot adequately respond to what you say because I don't have the knowledge as to whether or not what they're saying is valid. Let's assume that it's valid. So let's take it that what they're saying is valid. I remember someone saying, they were having a discussion, they said, they're making things against the genetics of black people. And then they asked, I don't know if it was Putin or whoever they asked, and said, what do you think about the West making these vaccines and other things to target, to kill Russians? He said, but I don't know how they're going to do it. He said, because we Russians got white, Asian, African, Turks, Chinese. You ever see Putin? Does Putin look like an average white man?
No.
Do you see Stalin? You see, you have Putin, Stalin, who's the...
Hitler.
No, Stalin.
Trotsky?
Yeah,
No.
look at all of them. They don't look like what you call Biden. They so mixed up. So his point was, yes, it's possible to try to target genetics, But he's saying, well, how do you do it when you got so much of certain other people in there? So I'm not doubting anything you say, and I agree with all of what you say, but, you know, what happened when you have a grandparent who's black as hell? And then the mother is light-skinned with freckles. What happened there? Martin Luther King said, there'll come a day, they said, when white kids and black kids will be holding hands. What Martin Luther King said? They'll do more than holding hands. So the way I answer the question, we kind of mix whatever that means. So how do they work that out? I understand what you're saying. I agree with all of this stuff there. All I'm saying is, how do you distinguish when the Russians are highly mixed? How do you distinguish when we got here, we not all, if you look at some of the pictures of the Africans when they brought here, most of us don't look like them. We're not dark enough. We don't have the heavy enough features, most of us. And when you go to Ghana and everything else, they say they call you white. Not because you're white, but because they're jet black and we done lost some of that.
Yes.
So then how, that's the best way I can answer the question. They're capable of anything. Yes.
Quick question, I know Ray getting ready to close it
Yeah.
out. With respect to autism, what is it in the so-called vaccines that trigger autism in children? Because when children take these things, because it's been outlawed at some places in China, they stopped certain vaccines from coming from the U.S. because it was giving their children autism. So what is it in these vaccines that cause autism? Is it the metals or what might it be?
So let me ask best way I ask the question, what's in the vaccine that in nature would normally go into the body? You got a vaccine, they got this, you got the sugar, you got the formaldehyde, you got all this nonsense. Does what's in that vaccine normally belong in the body?
No.
Answer is no. So where I answered, any one of the things could cause it. It doesn't belong there. The sugars, these oils, the aluminum.
I was getting ready to say the
All
metals.
of it.
Metals and formaldehyde.
All of it. Metals, formaldehyde. They put dead fetal tissue. They put everything in there. So anything you put. In other words, it doesn't belong in the body. So any and everything could cause it. And these people are making the vaccine to make money because statistics already show that it's them. Billions and billions. They even got it perfected to where the vaccine companies were going to go out of business until Congress give them what they call an immunity. You can't sue them. When you sue, you got to go to vaccine court. So the liability of the vaccine company is pushed on the government. And you see it right here. They tell you, all the liability is to the government. They do what they want. You stay away from them. All vaccination, only thing supposed to be in your, look, it's bad enough that we're fighting the toxic air, like I said, toxic air, water, and food. The government is supposed to be telling you about public health. There is no public health in this country. Zero.
That's right.
Public health means you're supposed to have a structure of professional and non-professional to react to something, and the military stores up what they need, right? But you don't do that. Public health is air, is water. If you go to another country, if you want to know if the population is healthy, if the air is pretty clean, the water is potable, good clean water to drink, and the sewage doesn't mix with your water, you're going to have a healthy population. Air is clean, the water doesn't mix with your sewage, and you're eating organic. We are in trouble. All of the water systems in the United States is polluted. The air is polluted. And everything we eat is toxic and polluted. Why do you think the average one person in the United States don't make it to 72 or 3 without being seriously ill? So, to answer your question, none of that belongs to get into your vaccine. It's money, and they got it perfected where the companies make whatever junk they want to make. They got 52 vaccines a child is supposed to get before 2, and they're going to kill the baby.
That's right.
So it's all of the above. Anything that doesn't go, you can blame any one of the single things they put in there.
Okay.
It is. That's the way I answer the question. Don't take anything.
Got you.
Any one of the things.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, give yourself a big hand. We want to thank Dr. Lewis for his lecture. Thanks for the questions. We will be here in 2 weeks. If anybody wants me to give them an email and so I can let them go to Zoom, Brother Mike is going to be the speaker, and his topic is going to be
Hollywood, the American government, and its effect on black people.
all right. And he might throw in a little something else special on the things that's going on today. So give yourself a big hand. I want to thank the people from Zoom for supporting the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr.'s History Club, and give yourself a big hand. Thank you very much. All right.